yesterday, Monday, Tuesday, whenever that was, last class, we worked on sort of minor retouching things that go on it within one image. Just sort of a little bit of cloning here and there, and then fixing little specs and stuff. Today I want to move up sort of to the next level, which is what I'm calling editorial changes, where we're really changing the image itself, either adding, subtracting, or bringing in images from an entirely different source, whether that's images you have or an assignment or off the web or whatever. A couple of things just up front, just with this image, you can just watch. You don't need to necessarily do it. With Revit and AutoCAD, you can pick objects, picking them in control pick or whatever to build up a bunch of them. And we have much the same kinds of operations in image editing software like Photoshop, except that we're dealing with individual pixels instead of objects. So we have to have some way to decide which of those do we want, which of those do we not want. So first thing, when you load an image, to be able to modify it much, it comes in as a background, which means that it's going to be that rectangle. You can edit it and stuff, but you can't like twist it and distort it. So I almost always just come in when something comes in and it says background and click the little icon over here that unlocks it and turns it into a layer that we can do anything with. And it's a layer of pixels. Okay, so when we're trying to select them, let's say that I would like to take my fire hydrant out of this drawing and put it into another one. Got a couple of ways to do that. Essentially, I can either outline it and decide those are the ones I want to pick, or I can pick it by color, like much of that orange and black stuff is as we can pick up. And let's look at both of those. And if you want to do this, you can. But mostly I just want to show you that there's two ways of selecting things. We have a lasso tool here, which is what I'm going to start with. I'm sorry, I'll use the polygonal lasso tool, which lets me just draw little straight line segments around the object as much as I want. And usually I end up doing a little bit more than I think I want to end up with, because that gives me some room to trim off once I get to the other end. Well, let's just say it was that much I wanted to do. Click, 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 click. And this generative fill thing, it keeps turning on this new version. I don't want that. I just want to use edit, copy. And then we can use edit, paste. And what happens is a copy of this is placed right exactly on top of the other one. This little layer one is now my new little top, which is right on top of the old one. I can go over to the move or /select tool and pick it and then move it. So I got two identical things right on top of each other. So that's picking by just outlining. You can't actually go pick individual pixels. Pick. It's always some sort of marquee. There's this one that is sort of a one for just like loose shapes. If I want to just grab a bunch of the street here, the polygonal lasso tool that I use, which is straight lines, and then there's the magnetic lasso tool, which is looking for edges. So I can just start it here and just I'm not clicking, I'm just like gently following that curve, and it's sort of doing its best to find those points. If I want to specify a point, I can click. But it's a pretty good job of finding things. I'll go over to here. I'm sort of getting close. There's some smart AI stuff going on in there. I guess I don't know how that works. I almost always use the polygonal one because I want a little more control than this one gives me. And then double click to close it up. And again, edit, copy, or Control C. Control C. Now it said the selected area is empty. And that's because I can't select things that aren't on the current active layer. Right now, layer one is my active layer, the new little piece. So I need to actually make layer 0, which is this one over here, active. And then I can do Control C. Selected area is, oh, I haven't done it yet. Sorry. There. Now that's active. Let's do this. Edit, copy, edit, paste. And then we have a new, this layer 2 is created. Make it active, and then I can move that stuff around. That's a lot of little picking stuff. Pick, by areas. Sometimes it's the only way to do stuff. We can also pick by color. So if I make my layer 0 active, I can pick this magic wand tool, which you click and it finds colors that are more or less like that. And right now, I can go into this area and hold down Shift and click again. And what you see is it's grabbing everything that's in with some, there's a tolerance range from 0 to 100. 0 would select only things exactly the same color as the pixel I picked. 100 would be everything. And it turns out that these out here, these sort of darker parts here are considered to be sufficiently like that it's going to pick them. I don't want that. I want ones that are just touching the stuff I've already picked. So I'll Control Z to get rid of that. And in this selection tool, I'll pick contiguous. So it will only pick colors, only pick pixels on this layer that are that touch pixels that have already been picked. So I can sort of narrow this down with Shift click. I'm going to leave this at 50. We can experiment with that a little bit. But if I get up to here, I guess I want that up there. And I can keep jumping around. I don't have to keep picking just orange all the time. And then at some point, I don't want to have to pick all this stuff. So I can combine methods of selecting. So I have been picking by color. I can go over to here to pick a rectangular window, again, hold down Shift and start picking stuff that way. And somehow, I guess when I picked up here, they were close enough to do that. Anyway, so you can pick stuff that way. Control Z a couple of times. Control Alt Z backs up the, well, anyway, that's why it's demonstration. If I wanted to pick only things of exactly the same color, I could make my tolerance, let's say be 0. And like those two are the same color, but these guys are enough difference that they're not going to get picked. If I go to tolerance 100, and pick anywhere, 100, sorry. I get the whole drawing picked out, essentially, because it's there, I don't know exactly how that, what the algorithm is. Apparently these guys were not close enough to get picked, but these were. Anyway, so the two methods of picking by defining the area or by color, and you can use them at the same time to build up a sense of what you want to be selecting. And then once you've selected it, you can delete it, you can copy it, you can move it, whatever you want to do. Control D will get rid of the highlighting. I now have these 3 layers, the original and then the 2 little guys. If I want let's say I want these 2 to move around together all the time, layer 1 and layer 2, I can select one, do a Shift select, and then do what's called link layers. It doesn't turn them into the same layer, but it means if I pick one, the other will move along with it. So that's handy when you've got, we'll see later, if you have a figure plus its shadow as separate objects, you can move them around together. But still, if you want them to unlink them, layer, unlink, you can do that, and then move things around separately. So, it's there's no direct analogy with Revit in terms of, the categories in Revit are like all the furniture together or all the walls together in one category. Here it's just whatever you decide you want to put, join together, and they can come back apart again later on. Some recent changes in how the eraser and the background eraser tools work caught me unawares in class, so here's a clarification of how they work together. I want to share the use of the erase tool that I didn't do well in class. If we create a new file and fill it with green pixels, this background starts with white pixels and I'm changing them all to green. Let's make my secondary color here, let's just say blue. So when I now use the eraser tool, it will erase with that blue color. If I go back to the background eraser tool and erase, it takes me down to transparent pixels. If I go back to the eraser tool, it continues doing transparent pixels. So it seemed like as soon as you go to the background eraser tool, it seems that if you use that once in an image, that stays as the tool that's being used. There's no way to go back to the plain old second color eraser tool. Now let's see if I create a new layer, what happens. Go to layer new, make that current, turn this one off. Let's fill this with the green again, bucket tool. So all new green pixels. Go to my eraser tool. Nope, still background erasing. So it seems like once you've used the magic eraser tool, that's the one that you're stuck with. And that's frankly fine. That's how I anticipate using them for the most part, but it's strange to me that these two are now effectively the same tool. Let's move on to what I think of as editorial retouching, using the horses on a beach image in the Class 1 exercise files. We used the clone tool and the spot retouching brush last time to fix little stuff. Now I like to remove that middle rider and explore a couple of ways we might do that. Let's see how it works with the tools that we know already. For instance, if we go to the spot healing brush that was so useful with small areas to be retouched, I'm just going to paint this out and see what happens. It's not really that satisfactory. It's like blurring a lot of stuff, and that's fine for like small areas. But when you get large pattern textured areas like this, it's going to be obviously something weird happened in there. There's this sort of smooth outness that we're not really looking for. So I'm going to Control Z, get away from there. And what I think the best thing to use here is the clone stamp tool. I'm just going to sort of take maybe just take this area over here and copy it down here over the horse. So I'll go to the clone stamp tool, which is this one that looks like a stamp, and this looks kind of a big brush to be using. So I'm going to right click and make that maybe 25 pixels or something that looks manageable. And then I'll hold down the Alt key and hit click. That will select right here, and then let me, using that as the base, then I can, let's say, pick the middle of the horse and start going in different directions this way. As you can see, this is bringing the texture along with it of the source. And that's pretty easy, but I still have a reflection of the horse, so we probably need to get rid of that. And I think what I'll do is just maybe pick the shoreline down here, Alt click, and then I can sort of line up that line of foam with the line of foam over here and do a little bit of painting. Oops, a little too far, that started picking that up. And that was a little too light. As you can see, this is lighter over here than over here. So if I undo that, I think what I do is all these brushes have the idea of opacity going along with them, which is how strong a copy of the original image do you want to show up where you're ending up with. So I'm going to just change that to 50%, somewhere around 50. And maybe I'll just start right. Is this a little darker? I'll use that same place. Alt click, come in. And you can do that a couple of times, lifting your mouse up and doing it again and again and again, just to sort of paste over that with a couple of different layers of, not layers exactly, but a couple of different passes of the color. And I think I'd like to maybe want to get rid of this horse shadow to make it clear that there's a horse in a shadow and a horse in a shadow. So maybe I'll pick my, start over here and sort of move it back and forth in here until I've sort of cleaned that up a little bit. Anyway, close enough. One of the exercises is taking the same image and adding a couple of horses. I'll let you do that on your own. In terms of getting rid of this over here, we got a couple of options. One is we can just clone again on top of that, but I think at this point I'm just going to crop the image to get rid of that, and then I think move this bottom up a little closer so that the reflections seem more important. And that's up here with the crop tool. And you just drag the edges in with the handles on each side or corner. And hit enter. To keep that original image, so we have that to go back to for future use. Let's do file save as. Save as, let's look at the options here. This is a horses on a beach JPEG file. I don't want to just save that on top of the original version. So I want to go to a save as. And before you click anything, let's see what our options are here. The important thing is being what our options are down at the bottom. And I'll just say horses on beach edited. Save. And again, it's going to ask us, remember JPEGs are compressed, and we can either ask it to save it with a maximum quality, which is to say how fine a distinction between the colors of adjacent pixel is going to keep track of. We want as much of that as we can. Say OK. And now we have left behind Horses on a Beach, the original one. That's still on disk. Don't have to worry about it. And we're working on Horses on Beach edited.jpg. I'll get rid of this streetscape one. No. So that was a sort of a nicely patterned area. We could make that look pretty good, and nobody's going to be looking too closely at what's going on in here if we don't sort of let them know that there's used to be a horse there. But in a couple other situations, let's go to File, Open, and pick up the hallway image. That's from week 1. Yeah, sorry, I should have put them all together. Yeah, this was in my old apartment building. It was the 3rd floor attic of a old school building on Frankfurt Avenue. And I was living there with my son at the time, and he's 6'4", and he would have to walk way over to the right half, and he just have to go back and forth to miss these gutters coming in. Okay, so a lot of times when you start a new image, if there's an active tool from the previous one, it'll pick that. And so you can see the crop is still active. I don't want to do that. What I want to do here is get rid of this light fixture for whatever reason. I just want to get rid of it. That's the option. And you'll see that if we use the clone tool, well, let's try what we know. Let's try healing brush. how far do we go? It's like, yeah, not so great. Control C. Let's try cloning. And the trick here will be we've got this sort of continuous, with when we did the used cars drawing, that sky was so consistently darker and darker and lighter, going up, that you could just sort of clone horizontally and it would be really, really clear. But here, I think we're going to find that because the I still have a horse's head there for some reason. Clone, Alt, click to select, big. What's going on here? I didn't expect that. That's a bunch of trees. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Something new. Trees, grass, water. Okay, I don't know what that's new to me. Just telling you. I'm going to go to File, Revert. And it sort of it's been remembering all these steps we've done and will take me back to here. Now, can I make, okay, so that didn't work, but clone, that was the pattern stamp tool, sorry. And that is something, that's exactly what's going on there, where this pattern starts getting pasted in there. We want to pick just the regular clone stamp tool that doesn't have the little, there's a little X or a little icon for a pattern. Okay, now we're good. Then we do Alt, select. Oh, man. Oh, opacity. There we go. These settings are remembered from image to image within an editing session. And part of the reason for that is if you're working on several right next to each other and get it set for one, if they're part of a set, then it'll be working for another. Alt. And what's happening here is that the darker tones from over here are not blending well with the lighter tones as we're getting closer to the skylight and the wall. So I'll undo that and try the Content Aware Fill tool, which is aware of the gradations in the pixels used to create the fill. So I'll select the area that I want to change. Pick Content Aware Fill. Paint the pixels I want to pick. I'm missing the door jamb, that confused things. Hit Enter, and voila. Now to make that all one image, I'll select the two layers, Shift-click, and merge them. One layer, smoothly merged. It takes some doing and a couple of tries and a bunch of undos to get it work out right. So is that working? Is that there? Okay, get the picture. This option of generative fill that keeps popping up is the one where you say, okay, fill this full it full of candy canes, and it'll do that, but we're not going there. Want to try? Sure. Just pick an area. Let's say generative fill candy canes. Good question. Yeah, we're all the time. That marquee is what they call it. Defines your current area on the current. So it's made a new layer called candy canes, and is thinking about it. Candy canes. Well, okay, many little candy canes. I don't know what you have to type in there, but What happens here? Good. Poor. Poor. Oh, hide bar is what I want to have happen. That's where it was. Hopefully that will never show up again. So we got a part of a candy cane. Okay, so content aware fill. I don't even know where that's happening. Is that happening in the cloud somewhere? Is it happening here? I've got no idea at this point. I'm trying to give in my own work and for you guys, giving you the tools to be in control of all this, in control of these tools, as opposed to relying on the computer to try to interpolate or guess what you want. And to do that, I like to go over to the Sacred Heart image, Sacred Heart School. Again, this was from one day's stuff. So here, still within one image. Now, instead of erasing stuff, what we've been doing so far, I want to start adding things, copying things from this drawing, from this image into other places to itself. And what I really like to do is match this window over here and match this window over here. And I think this is a clear case. We want to, let's say, to grab this window, I want to go to, instead of the lasso tool, I want to click that and pick the polygonal lasso tool. That's the one with the straight edges. And I'm just going to follow, just build myself a rectangle here, sort of right along the edges of those. And then edit copy and edit paste. And so we have a new one right on top of the old one. It makes it current by default. I'll go to my move tool and then move that over to here. And because this wall is closer to us, the tiles are marginally larger. So we're going to have to resize this as well. And if we see that this has 4 full squares here and 4 full squares here, and 3 up from the bottom, I want to, I want to locate this guy. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll put that corner right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. This one has to slide over a bunch. So the next question will be, how do we stretch that? We can see because it's, for whatever reason, it's not quite aligned right, and it's definitely not the right size. So the good tool here is to, with that layer selected, go to Edit, Transform, Skew, which is lets us pick a corner of something and drag it where we want it. So it looks like we need to come up 3 squares. So I'll pull this down to here. So that corner is, skew only works in one direction at a time, X or Y. That comes down to there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this has got to come way over to here. So I'm sort of just leaving the joints there, just barely visible. Okay, and then when you've got it the way you want it, you can just click out here, which will deselect it, and now it's sort of in place there. So let's check. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so that's in just the right place. I want to make sure I don't accidentally move that around. So I can pick that layer and lock it so it doesn't move. We have a couple of things we can lock. We can lock image pixels. We can lock its position. I think that's what I want to do. at this point, just lock its position. We get the little lock there, so if I go and pick it, I can't move it around. Let's look at a different tool for this one down here. We'll use distort instead of skew just to see how they compare. When I get this window, again, I'll use the polygonal lasso tool. Got it. Edit, copy. I can't copy it because right now no layer is active. So I need to make sure to make my background layer active, and then I can edit copy. And then edit paste. We get a new layer, which you can highlight, select, and drag. And with that layer active, I'll go to Edit, Transform, and try Distort, and just see if that's an easier tool for this. The difference is Distort will let you move a corner in multiple directions at once. One, two, three, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Usually have to sort of go around the corners a couple of times with this because moving one corner will marginally affect the others as well. And then click outside. And then I think I'll lock that one as well, positionally. Okay, so that's copying something inside an image into the same image. Let's open up the that street scene again. What I want to do is get the fire hydrant and put it over here, moving it something from one image into the other one. And I think at this point I'm going to just grab sort of a whole rectangle here of stuff and then do all the trimming over in the other drawing. So I'll just go grab I'm using my rectangular marquee. Grab that on my background layer. That should be fine. Edit, copy. And then we can see multiple views at the same time, multiple images. If we go to Window, Arrange, tile them all next to each other vertically, we can do this. I copied it already. I'll do it again, Edit, Copy. And then click over here to make this the active window. You can see the difference between grayed out and bright. And then Edit, Paste. So I think at this point, to keep these guys all clear in my mind, I'm going to close down this window. The little X here will let me shut this down. If I go to File, Exit, that takes me out of the whole program. I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to X out of there. And to keep my various layers straight, it really helps to name them. So here's my Fireplug layer. So I'm going to just right-click on the word there, double-click, and call it hydrant. So a couple of things are wrong with this. One is it's tilted. It's probably definitely too big for where we want to have it, and it's got all this stuff around it. So we need to fix all of those. Let's rotate it first while we're at it. If they're not turned on already, enable your transform controls so you can use a corner to turn that till it's vertical. And then to get rid of the background, we'll turn on the properties window for these layers. Window properties, select the layer, and choose remove background. And voila. Okay, there's hydrant. Okay, there we go. Let's put it down. Let's put it up here somewhere. But let's just make this guy be, you know, actually let's do move it down here. Sorry. To some size that looks good to you. Actually, if that's going to be facing out towards the street, it probably should go up here. So it's what I want to do is I want to sort of leave room for an appropriate size shadow for it. Okay, close enough. Okay. So it looks a couple of things. It looks a little dark to me. I mean, we're in bright sunshine and the other one's taken on a cloudy day. So let's brighten it up a little bit with image. Image. Okay. It was locked. Did you see that? There was a little lock thing over here. I had to unclick that. And I don't know if that's tied into how it was created, but anyway, this is all new to me. Adjustments, brightness and contrast. Let's make it a little bit brighter, just like it's sitting in the sun a little bit. And one of the drawbacks of doing this is, everything else in the drawing has shadows right now. This could be floating in space. Nothing's really tying it to the ground yet. So a really good way to do shadows is to make a copy of this. Well, let me just go through it and you can see what's happening. I'm going to right click the hydrant layer and duplicate it. I'm going to call it hydrant shadow. And I'm going to let's move it out here. Man. Layer mask thumbnail. It's been, oh. I know it's gone. When we remove that, did the background remove? It doesn't actually erase those pixels. It puts what's called a mask over it so we don't see them. A cloak of invisibility, if you like. That's really getting in the way. Can I just delete layer, apply layer mask? Let's do apply layer mask, see what's, I think that'll do me. Okay, good. That sort of got rid of the process going on and just left me with the pixels. So I right-clicked on that little extra rectangle there and did this. Back in good shape. This is crazy. Applied it. And that means so that was like a preview of what it was, and now it actually happens. So good. So now hydrant shadow, I want to go to image, adjustments, hue and saturation, and I'm going to take this all the way to black and saturate it completely. So we have no color left in it at all. It's just a black shadow. So lightness to 0, saturation to 0, which means no color. And then I'm going to take this hydrant shadow layer and give it an opacity of, let's say, 50%. And then I'm going to use those stretching tools that we used on the windows to sort of make this slide out away from the edit, transform. Let's use distort. To do something that looks vaguely vaguely fire hydrant-y. Nobody's paying attention if it's perfect. If it's two people, it looks like two people. You say fine. Drag that in a little bit, and then right now this is because the shadow. Each time you create a layer, it's created on top of the previous one. I'm going to take the hydrant shadow and drop it down behind the hydrant, so we get it like that. And the only thing I want to do here is sort of make sure that this shadow is going in the same direction as this shadow. I think I'll pull it down a little bit. How does that work? Sorry, I wasn't in a transform. I was just in a scale. Edit, transform, distort. Yeah, get these all parallel. And maybe that's, maybe it's 40% or 60% or something, but you can sort of figure that out. Say again? You got to highlight the layer, and then its options become available. And this is a case where I think I would link the hydrant and the hydrant shadow together so they move together and scale together. Pick hydrant and then shift pick for hydrant shadow, then right click for link layers. And now whichever one you select, the other one comes along with it. A question from the floor about moving the shadow underneath the hydrant. I just clicked and dragged it down underneath the hydrant layer. And AutoCAD has a similar thing where you have you can do fills and you can stack them on top of each other, but you never really see the stack, and it becomes very important when you're starting to put these together. If I decided to move it back, those together back to there, I think I'd then have to shrink them down. They shrink down together when they're linked. So it's really a very handy way to keep. But look at that. There we go. Ooh. Got to be careful. So a lot of this is eyeballing. And I think again, once you've got it at this point, that looks so. Yeah, I guess that's all right. It's interesting going back and forth from rendering in Revit and then incorporating that rendering into a more complex Photoshop document, and the fact that with Revit, Control click adds to your selection, and shift click lets go, and it's just the reverse in Photoshop is driving me crazy. Your fingers get used to doing one thing, and it does just the opposite. Okay, so here we have brought something in from one image into another. I think I'm just going to do file save as Sacred Heart with Sacred Heart. Okay, with the other when we were just doing the cloning, we could save a JPEG as a JPEG because it's just pixels. JPEGs don't support the idea of layers. If we want to come back to this and keep messing with layers, we need to save this in Photoshop's own format, PSD Photoshop document. If I save this as JPEG, all this will just be mashed flat into one layer. So I think I will save this as Sacred Heart entry edited Photoshop document. And then when we reopen that, it will have these layers. I'll say save. So we're in that. And now that we're working in a Photoshop document, if we want to save it as another version as a JPEG, mash flat, so we can put it on the web or something or other, that's when you go to File, Save a Copy, Save a Copy, and that gives you the standard JPEG currently being saved in the background. So when we're doing this to prepare like textures and stuff for Revit, we'll always do this as Save a Copy because Revit only opens JPEGs and stuff. It doesn't open Photoshop documents. Just too much to keep track of. File, Save a Copy. And we'll say save it as a JPEG. Say okay. Let's take a little break and come back, and we'll do a bit more of this, sort of combining some of these tools. One thing I want to do here, just a last little touch, is, you know, we got such a strong shadow, but this is still relatively evenly lit. We might want to just like brighten up this side of this guy. Let's see how that would work. I think what I'll do is use a polygonal lasso tool and just sort of come down here. Just sort of faking this right now. I'm just guessing that that's going to look sort of like it's brighter. Image adjustments, brighter. If you want to see these without the marquee on, you can use Control H for hide. That's a little too abrupt, but a little bit. No. Helps a little bit. Let's go back to to that original street scene. And what I want to do here is I want to make another bike rack right next to this one. And I think I'm not gonna try to remove the background immediately. I'm gonna just use the color picker tool, magic wand tool, tolerance. Let's just say 50 to start with, and then shift click, shift click, shift click. Shift click, and then for the rest of it, that doesn't yeah, I'll worry about that later, erasing when the time comes. But I think down here, I'm just going to use, I've selected this, I need to select a little bit more. I'll just change back to the polygonal lasso tool. I'm still selecting stuff, but with that active, then I can use shift to start defining areas. I can use shift, click, 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 click. I can use some rectangles just to, I'm using shift on all of these to I do want to get this this sort of shadowed base, so I don't just have a disc of blue sitting on the concrete. And it's going to be all right to pick up some of the concrete here because we're just going to be pasting it back onto concrete. Looks good. If I want to get rid of this over, no, we'll just erase it when we get there. Edit copy, edit paste. Got the second one here. Select it, move it down. And you can see that it appears to have grown. It's exactly the same size, but just we're used to that, you know, shrinking. So I'm just going to use just scale it with the transfer controls. Oops. And I think that the trick here is, in terms of vanishing points, we got a vanishing point where these two lines meet out here somewhere. And I'm sort of making the tops of these two look like they align, connecting them would also be, sort of ending up down at that same vanishing point over, off the screen somewhere. We also need to warp it a little bit to take into account the vertical perspective converging to get these looking like they're vertical relative to the others as opposed to coming in weird. How's that? Better? I think so. So I'll do file, save as, or save a copy since it'll be a JPEG. Streetscape with 2 racks, JPEG, save. Okay, let's go to week 2 exercise files. This nice little couple in their little wooded path, I want to put them out in the big wooded path. And I'd be interested to see, let's open, can I just click and shift click? And I can just open them both at the same time, I think. Separate files next to each other. So I'm not even going to try to remove the background on these guys because I think it would take my computer like 400 days. But I am going to I'm going to do it with the polygonal tool, and you guys try it with the adjust, properties and see if you can do it. Next week, I'm going to address sort of how we deal with the edges of things so we don't get little fringes of color on them, but I'm not going to bother with that this week. If you are doing it this way and you click a wrong point, you can use the backspace key to get to sort of work your way back through the points you've picked. Aren't they cute? I want to create an image I can use again and again and again that is just them, that doesn't have the background to it. I don't want to just do this one off. I would like to use them in multiple images, let's say. So if I hit like delete or something to get rid of stuff, it's going to erase them, not the background. So this is when we can invert the selection set, which is with Control-Shift-I. So it flips it. So now they are not selected, but everything outside them is selected. And then I can use the background eraser tool to start erasing out there. Hit delete, get rid of that. Control-D. So there they are, ready to get pasted in place. Now, if this is what I'm going to do is save this as a file and then import it back into the larger image. I need to save this in a file format that supports transparency. If I save this as JPEG, this would come in with these all as white pixels, which is not what we want. So let me go get rid of this little bit right here. So we'll just crop this down so it's just them. Enter, crop this, enter. So I'll do file, save a copy. And there are two file formats that save the transparent pixels that for instance, Revit can use, and that would be TIFF and PNG. That's for portable network graphics, and that's really the best one to use for all of this. So we have old couple walking, copy, save. That's fine. So then I'm going to close this out. Oh, I'm just going to say large file size. That sounds fine. Most detail. And we're not saving the JPEG. We'll leave that, the original one there. Okay, so now we're here. And now to bring one whole image in, not just something that's been copied to the clipboard and pasted, but to bring in a whole new image, we go to File, Place. And we have two choices for that, embedded and linked. And embedded means bring it in and just have it here independent of anything else that's happening on the hard disk. Place linked would mean if the image we're bringing in changes on disk, then it will change here as well the next time we open this file. I don't want to do that. I want to do place embedded almost all the time. And we have the old couple here. There they were with their old surround. Here they are with their transparent pixels around them. And we can put them in and then decide where they want to be and therefore how big they are going to get. Enter something, yeah. So then you have to decide what your scale is going to be. I guess they look a little small there. And if the sun were coming from over here, I might flip them horizontally. Let's just give that a try. Edit, transform, flip horizontal to make the sun be coming over their shoulder, but I like it better the other way. There are plenty of sites where you can, if you just Google for human figures, transparent background, a bunch come up. And that's really handy, as you can see, the time it takes you to do that masking by hand. Let's save this as, we don't need to save this, heck with it. Save, no. Okay, if we bring in the BAB drawing, and when you do File, Place Embedded, the icon comes up looking like this in the layer list. And these guys represent what Photoshop calls a smart object, which means, I mean, this whole image has some size to it. We go to image size in pixels. Okay, 1920 by 1280. It's very likely that the resolution of the couple there is actually higher resolution than that. What makes this a smart object is that even if I reduce them down to tiny to see them in some other context, and it looks like on the screen as if their pixel values, their pixel size matches the size of the image of the background of the whole thing. If I had pasted them in from another image, they would have taken on that highly pixelated, low resolution look. When it goes in there as a smart object with place embedded or place linked, then it retains its high resolution, even though it displays it with less resolution. So when you're bringing things in like this, it really does make sense instead of pasting them in place, especially if there's something you want to move around, don't know how big you want it to be. You don't want to sort of get them locked in with low resolution pixels when you're actually going to end up using them somewhere that needs more. For this couple, I think the sun is coming from over here, so I think I'll flip them. Edit, transform, flip horizontal. And again, these guys, they need a shadow to sort of lock them in place. So I'm going to right-click, duplicate layer. young people shadow. We'll move that over here just a little bit. Image adjustments, hue and saturation. Change the opacity. And then edit, transform. Well, I can just rotate them this way, can't I? Oh, I see what's happening. It turns those off while I'm rotating this. We'll have this come along like that. And then, okay, I got it. Okay, now we have it. Edit, transform, distort. Now here the trick is that, you know, her feet are a lot different from his feet. So I'm going to sort of stretch this out to pick up his and stretch that in to pick up hers and pull this down and see what we get. It looks, you know, reasonable to do that. And we got the sun coming this way, so that, yeah, sunlight catching her arm like that. So I think that'll be fine. And now what's nice too is if we then link the shadow, shift click, link layers. Okay, then we can shrink them down together, move them off somewhere wherever they want to go. Okay, and you can see that as they've shrunk, they've taken on the pixel size of the rest of the image, but we've kept that information with them. So when it comes back larger, they regain that resolution. Okay, so far we've been talking about putting an image on top of a base image. What I'd like to do in the next 10 minutes is to think about putting an image, slide it underneath that. I think don't need this. And for that, I'd like you to open, it's called Room with Large Window. This one, Room with Large Window. And I'm not going to show you how to do this on the screen. I think you should be able to figure it out by now, but basically I would like to erase these with the background eraser tool, and then go on the web to find a landscape picture, and then paste it in, and then we'll bring that underneath this background image. So we'll be having something that's outside there. You can slide it around and trade stuff off. This is a good way in your studio projects. I was thinking of your project last semester. You know, a view out towards Shelby River Road. You could have, from that site, you could have photographed the rainbow blossom across the street or something like that. You know, take that picture and then end up doing this on your interior views of your own projects. You actually see what's out across the street there. A question from the floor about how to erase these rectangles after we've selected them. What you need is the background eraser tool picked for your delete tool. And a way you can test that is to pick that background eraser tool. That's the one that has the scissors, and you can see if it's there, if it's working, and if it is, then when you go to do the whole thing, why isn't this working? Now with that as the active tool, I'm just going to use the delete key and get rid of that. So easy once you see it done. While I'm waiting for my browser open on your images, there's really a lot of brightness contrast between inside and outside. Think about your relative brightnesses, because I think that inside looks like it's taken with a flash or something. There's lots of light. Maybe that just needs to be darkened down so you get a better sense of the depth going on. Let me go File, Open. Just in terms of the mechanics of all this, instead of placing a file, you can also just open it, do Control A to select everything, Control C to copy it, go back into your other view and do Control V to paste it, Control V, and then drag its layer underneath the layer of the window that you're looking out of. Move it around and scale it to show what you want to show. Now I'm going to darken the interior layer to make it a greater contrast between the lit window and the darker room. Okay, I'm done with the presentation part of this. I've had it just takes too long, but I have a couple of suggestions if you want to try them. With your phone, here's an exercise. With your phone, take a photograph of your face. You did already? It is fun, and then split it in half and do mirror each half. Look at your face, what your face looks like with two left halves and what with two right halves. It's fun. So that's a suggestion. Give the young man a third eye. There's one of the guys from Twilight or something on there in week 2, and he could use an eyeball right here. Or add a rider on the beach. That's not very exciting, actually. An image search on the interweb reveals that this is Geoffrey Cresswell, who was a year behind Harry Potter at Hogwarts. He was sorted into Gryffindor and participated in the Battle of Hogwarts and, fortunately, emerged unscathed. I'm going to clone this guy's eye, and stick it up here in the middle of his forehead. But I don't know exactly where I want it. So I'm going to clone it from this layer onto another one that I can move around. So to start out with, I'll go down on the layers here. Here's the plus sign for make a new layer. Okay, I'll make that active. That's where I'm adding pixels. And then I'll use the clone stamp tool, a little smaller. This is important too. One of the controls for the clone tool is when it's looking at pixels you want to copy, is it only going to take them from the current layer, which in this case is layer 1, which has no pixels on it, onto layer 1? Can it take it from the pixels all the layers on layer 0? So I'll say all layers. One. Let's go get an eyebrow. And then because this is on its own layer, this eyebrow. I can then move that around to decide just where I want it. And I couldn't do that if I was cloning it. Just right onto the same there where it came from. So a lot of say again. Well, we aim to please. That's not a very nice brush doing that. Let me do that more nicely. It's just go for it, guys.